If you take a map of India and draw a single dot out in the middle of the Arabian Sea, even that tiny mark would be 100 times larger than the actual landmass you're looking for. Lakshadweep is the smallest union territory in India, made up of 36 islands so minuscule that you could fit 1,000 of them inside the city of Delhi. But once you arrive, the scale of the map fades away. You are greeted by stretches of blindingly white sand cutting through ocean water so bright it almost looks artificially dyed. The water in these shallows is remarkably clean. If you stand on the shoreline and look out at the anchored boats, you can clearly see their shadows projected onto the ocean floor beneath them. Despite this overwhelming beauty, Lakshadweep remains nearly empty. Of these 36 islands, only 10 support any permanent human settlement. The rest remain entirely untouched. This emptiness is maintained by a strict bureaucratic process. Unlike most of the mainland, visitors here are required to secure special permits and police clearance certificates before they are even allowed to book a ticket. Even with your papers in order, the physical journey is a barrier of its own. Reaching these islands often requires a grueling, multi-hour crossing from the coast of Kerala on a massive 5-story ship carrying 700 passengers across the deep Arabian Sea. The result is a territory that feels suspended in time. By making access so difficult, India has created a sanctuary where the landscape remains shaped by the tides rather than the footprints of millions of tourists. Once you are standing on one of these islands, you realize the ground beneath your feet isn't traditional rock. The foundation here is a fragile, living ecosystem. It is built by corals, microscopic organisms that stem generations pulling calcium from the seawater to build hard, protective skeletons. Over thousands of years, millions of these living corals and the crushed skeletons of dead ones fuse together. They expand upward from the ocean floor, eventually forming massive underwater barriers known as reefs. You can see the result of this labor in the colors of the water. The dark blue represents the heavy currents of the open ocean, while the bright turquoise interior marks the lagoon, a shallow, calm area protected by those coral barriers. When this reef forms a continuous, unbroken ring that completely encloses the internal water, it's called an atoll. In India, this unique formation exists only here. This means the very existence of the territory relies on a continuous biological process. The living corals are constantly building upward to defend the land against the erosive power of the open ocean. Building a permanent civilization on these tiny, humid strips of coral sand requires a specific kind of adaptation. On the island of Kavaratti, houses have stood for over a century, built entirely out of hand-cut coral stones washed up from the sea. If you look at the texture of the walls, you can see the patterns of the reefs themselves etched into the stone. This choice wasn't just about availability. The porous coral stones naturally insulate the homes against the island's oppressive heat, keeping the interiors cool without the need for electricity. Further out on the remote island of Banali, the adaptation is even more extreme. Here, a single family lives entirely off-grid, utilizing solar panels to power their life at the edge of the world. Without access to modern appliances, they've turned the island's groundwater wells into natural refrigerators. Because the water stays cool in the shade of the earth, they hang their vegetables down the shaft to keep them fresh in the tropical heat. They've even engineered solutions for the local wildlife. To prevent island crabs from raiding their food, they attach smooth plastic bottles to the legs of their tables, creating a slippery surface the crabs can't climb. Living here isn't a luxury vacation. It requires constant ingenuity and a willingness to adapt every part of your life to severe resource scarcity. But no amount of local engineering can fully tame the Arabian Sea. The water remains a destructive force that dictates exactly how much of these islands humans are allowed to keep. In 2010, a massive commercial ship misjudged the depth of the reefs. It collided with the coral and became permanently trapped. Today, thousands of tons of rusted steel sit stranded on the shoreline, a permanent reminder of how quickly the ocean can claim a vessel. I experienced this unpredictability firsthand on the very first day of my shoot. I had set my camera on a tripod near the shoreline to capture the scenery. Within seconds, a sudden, unexpected tidal surge rushed up the beach and completely swallowed the gear. My entire setup, worth $250,000, was destroyed by saltwater before I could reach it. For the rest of the trip, I had to adapt. Without a main camera, I was forced to shoot the remainder of this video using only a drone controller and a few mobile workarounds. The ocean is unforgiving. If you refuse to respect its power and adapt to its sudden shifts, it will take everything you brought with you. Yet for those who endure the long crossings and the harsh conditions, the rewards are experiential. They are sights that can only exist in a place this isolated. When you dive 3 stories deep into the open sea, the noise of the world disappears. You find yourself in a state of profound, weightless isolation, sharing the current with sea turtles in a habitat that remains entirely undisturbed. On the surface at night, the lack of commercial development reveals hidden natural phenomena. Without any light pollution from cities, the darkness allows the ocean itself to provide the light. Microscopic organisms washing up on the pitch-black shores of Bangaram Island glow with bioluminescence. Every wave that hits the sand leaves behind a trail of electric blue light. Lakshadweep proves that raw, natural beauty isn't a commodity that can be easily bought. It is an environment that rewards only those willing to surrender to its isolation.